Far from the sun, beyond stars, I hear their song. They're coming closer, talking without sound, calling me home. Calling out Mayday. Calling out Mayday. Save me.
Greetings, party members! Today we will not be engaging in any wrong think. Oh no, it is time for our 5 minutes of hate.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Greetings, party members. Welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be Patrick Smith, and this is a very special edition of Anarchast that we bring for you today. This is part of the Anarchapulco live stream, so hello to everyone out there all over the world in your decentralized and VIP and watch party watching things. Good to see you guys. We have my producer in the background, who I will introduce first. Kaysen, as always, he is watching all of the comments over all of the platforms. I think there's like 8 of them right now. So wherever you're typing, he's probably watching. If you have a question that you would like to submit for the debate that you're about to hear, please put question in all capitals followed by your question so that everywhere he's watching, hopefully he will see it. Before I introduce our debaters and the topic of our debate, I want to let you know about sort of like the sponsor of this debate. It's me. I have recently started a service offering called voluntary.one. Voluntary.one, O-N-E. It is sort of a partnership that I've made with Proton Mail, the provider of very secure and encrypted email, drive space, calendar, as well as VPN service, to provide all of their services to you at the same prices they charge, but under a voluntaryist domain called Voluntary One, with more domains coming soon. So if you are interested in getting away from Google and want to run your own show, so to speak, and you want the cryptography and the safety and the trust that comes with Proton Mail, please consider signing up for voluntary.one. Today, you can go to voluntary.one and it'll redirect you to the page with all of the links for you to check that out and subscribe. Not only will you get Proton Mail, but you will be helping out a voluntaryist in the process. So that concludes the spam for today's show. Let's get on with it. Today, I bring you 2 guests, 2 debaters, 2 excellent minds for liberty. The first is the Larkin Rose, who do I need to even introduce you to this crowd? I think you've spoken at every Anarchapulco since the beginning, right?
I think I missed the very first one, but that's about it.
You are the author of The Jones Plantation, which is coming out as a movie in the future. And maybe you can tell us more about that. You're also the author of The Most Dangerous Superstition, one of the most world-changing, amazing books that I've ever read. And you're the host of The Rose Channel as well. I think that's therosechannel.com. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. Thanks for stepping up to the debate table for us today.
Thanks for having me on.
The other contender is Joshua Smith. He is a member of the Libertarian Party. He ran for chair of the Libertarian Party in 2020, right? Twice? Okay, twice. Okay. And he is the host of the new Break the Cycle podcast. Welcome to the show and the debate, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I'm not going to fine you. What are you talking about?
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Okay, cool. So really quickly, and I won't go nearly as in-depth as I did the last time we did a debate, but we are using a debate format that I developed that I call the tensor debate format. All the participants here have agreed to the format. It is very non-standard for most of the internet debate stuff that you have seen. Basically, both participants have already agreed to the basics of the 3 rules of reason, what constitutes truth, what constitutes accuracy. If you want to read the format and the agreement that both of these people agreed to, there's a link in the description where it'll take you straight to it. You can read the whole format, you can read all the rules that they've agreed to, and all that stuff. For the most part, I'll leave it there. The main differences is that we have very short intro and we have very short outro, sort of conclusion segments. The whole rest of the format is conversational. And what that means is that the 3 of us, and this is not just a one-on-one, this is a 3-person conversation with me as you, the viewer's representative. So if they start going off on a tangent, I'm going to rein them in. If they start talking using words that most people might not understand, which I don't think is going to happen today, but I will, call that out and help them define it. And I will also end the debate if they start coming to blows. Not that that's going to happen at all. So check out the document. Yeah, virtual blows. So with that said, let's jump right into the introductions. Basically, we have one primary point of contention that we're going to start with. And then if we have time, because this is going to run for 2 hours, we have a second sort of follow-up that might tighten the screws even more on the debate. The point of contention of this debate is as follows. Political action is philosophically and morally consistent with being a libertarian/voluntarist. I think we said that Josh was going to go first. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you have up to 5 minutes, but don't feel pressured to use it all.
Sure. Well, I'm pro this position. Obviously, I work in politics, and I still greatly consider myself a voluntarist. I think that working inside the Republicans and the Democrats, obviously, that's not a morally or philosophically consistent position because their candidates are trying to get into positions to gain power, to take power over other people's lives. I truthfully believe that the candidates that I work with, as far as the candidates that I decide to work with, but the party that I bolster as well, these candidates they're different than those candidates. They're trying to get into positions to relinquish state power over our lives. And so I know that, some anarchists will tell me, well, you're becoming part of the system. You're making the system relevant. I disagree. I think the Libertarian Party and their candidates are getting into these positions to veto bad bills. We just had a state legislator get elected finally after a couple of decades. But including the local candidates that we run around the country, they have the opportunity to help push their city in a more libertarian direction through politics. Now, I don't disagree with agorist thought or anarcho-capitalist thought or people who decide they want to opt out of the system. I just believe that the vast majority of this country still, take part in the system at some level. And, having a political party that is trying to run candidates to get into these positions to relinquish that power over our lives and like I said, veto bad bills and lobbyists that are going to work to push a libertarian agenda politically. And also, the Libertarian Party, one half of the bylaw of why we exist is to educate. It's a big, huge educational think tank. Now, I think the party as it stands has forgotten about that part of the bylaw. But the reason why I work with them is I'm trying to bring people in that understand that a political party does have the opportunity to get on the federal stage. I mean, the national stage in some places, like our candidate in Arkansas did against Tom Cotton, who didn't show up for the debate. He had a whole hour to address his constituency on PBS and bring libertarian thought to his constituency on a mass scale. So I do believe that, it can be relevant if we actually work with it. But I also understand people wanting to opt out and not work with it. So I do believe it's, as long as you're not advocating for more power over the lives of the people that are in your constituency, then I believe that it is morally and philosophically consistent with libertarian principles. So, and I'll yield the rest of my time there.
Larkin?
I think in order to solve any problem, you have to be all the way clear on what the problem is, what the origin and what the mechanics of the problem are. For example, once upon a time in this country, sadly not that long ago, there was open chattel slavery. The problem in that case was not that the slaves were whipped harder or longer than they should have been. The problem was not that they were forced to work too many hours. The problem was that people thought you could own other people. The solution to that, the abolitionists got right, which is slavery is evil, end it now. And it took a long time before it did. Mostly it just transferred into political slavery instead. It took a long time to do away with it, but the solution, imagine a group that came along and said, well, that's a little extreme and we're not sure people are going to go for that. So we're going to petition for laws that you're only allowed to work your slaves like 12 hours a day and you can only whip them 20 lashes for this offense. And we'll make a bunch of regulations. We will accept the notion that you can own other people. We'll accept the premise. We'll accept the evil foundation of the entire institution, and then we'll try to make it nicer on the slaves. Even though that theoretically could make the life of a slave on a practical basis a little bit less horrible, that is still a pro-slavery position. And when it comes to politics, the problem is not that government takes too much of our money. It's not that government controls too much of our choices. It is the idea that anybody can have the right to rule at all. So if somebody is trying to use political power or trying to get into political power, even to relinquish it, as he said, that doesn't make authoritarianism go away. What that does is accept the premise that it is up to legislators to give us their blessing, to allow us to be a little bit more free, to allow us to not quite have as much of our stuff stolen. It accepts the premise of authoritarian domination and then tries to make it a little bit less painful. That is absolutely a pro-government, pro-authoritarian, anti-freedom position, because as long as it's spreading the notion that we should be asking for legislative permission to be free, that is accepting and reinforcing the entire problem. And the entire problem is the notion that they have the right to rule us. And I don't care if it's a nice master or a mean master or something in between. That belief in authority is the entire problem. And when we try to use the political process and elections to go, like you said, relinquish power, all we're doing, even if they were to win, all they're doing is reinforcing the notion that we need them to give to us our freedom. As long as people believe that, they are slaves in their own mind, no matter what happens on the political sphere. So no, my position is that trying to do anything along the lines of getting power and changing legislation, all it does is reinforce the problem in the name of making the practical suffering a little bit less. And that, to me, just makes the problem even stronger than it was before, whether you win or not.
Okay, so that concludes pretty much the last of the regimented section of this debate. Now I'd like us to just kind of have a conversation. And I guess I forgot to mention, like, my position as a moderator is one that I absolutely agree with the principled, non-compliant, non-aggression principle compliant activism in any method that anybody can think of. I want many people trying many different things as long as it's NAP compliant, as long as it's principled. And so that's why and that maybe Larkin can start by responding to this. I started by running a campaign for not governor of Texas here 3 years ago, and I'm probably going to do it again here in a little bit. So I'm seeing sort of both sides of this debate, and I think that puts me in a good place to be sort of the middleman moderator for this. Larkin, do you have any comments on that? And then maybe we can proceed.
Yeah, I was basically gonna make 3 points for the other side. Three things that I agree. Well, it was gonna be two, and you just added a third.
Okay.
There are two ways in which I'm not at all opposed to people sort of using the system to try to limit authoritarian power. One is jury nullification. If people go and sit in the box and let the God complex psycho in a black robe babble on, and then say, this law is stupid, we're letting them go. To me, that's an anarchist act. It's saying, yep, that person totally broke the law and we just don't care, we're letting them go. And it's weird that you have this little bit of anarchism actually built into the American judicial system, and then the judges try really hard to hide that from people. I think New Hampshire is like the one state where you're allowed to point out to the jury that you can just decide the law is stupid and let them go. So I'm not opposed to that. I'm also not opposed to it, not as opposed to it, when people vote on a referendum against some particular piece of power. Like, I think trying to put someone into power is inherently counter to voluntarism. But if there's just a thing, hey, do you want a new tax stealing even more of your money? And people just go in to say, no, I don't mind that. Now, in the long run, if enough people were there to do that, they could have just disobeyed it and broken it anyway without having to play their system and legitimize their system. But now the third version I'd add, with 18,000 caveats that I won't mention, if somebody runs for office and is all the way completely clear about the fact that whether he wins or not has nothing to do with anything about morality, changing legislation is not the way to change morality. Trying to get in a position of power is 100% irrelevant to right and wrong, and they're just sort of being a clown in the circus to say, hey, this whole circus is bogus and illegitimate. I can see a use to that. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the time when I see libertarians running for office, they very quickly fall into the pattern of, if you vote for me, I will, if they vote for you, A, you will lose, and B, even if you won and did your legislative agenda, all you're doing is reinforcing the insane notion that we need legislative permission to be free. So if someone jumps into the circus just to be a clown and make fun of the circus, I can see some use in that. But actually trying to have a political or legislative agenda, to me, is just completely antithetical to actual self-ownership.
What do you have to say for yourself, Joshua?
Well, I think honestly, like, I don't want to be an asshole, but I think that was just a little morally inconsistent, that you're like, okay, I'm okay with these types, but not anybody else who's trying to get into the positions. I'd like so you said something in your opening about, working inside the system is justifying that the system exists and is legitimate. But the truth is for the libertarian candidates that are running in the Libertarian Party in general, I couldn't speak to many other parties, the Green Party or the Reform Party or whatever, all these crazy parties. But for the Libertarian Party, which I am in national leadership for, I think that we're not justifying the system. What we're justifying is the thought that many, 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 many people in this country take part in the system and do legitimize the system on a daily basis. It's some form of government, whether it's the local government, the state government, the county government, the federal government. And we understand that this, the Libertarian Party is just another tool in the toolbox to rolling back the state. Now, I don't disagree with you. I think that, I think that it's a much better idea. Look, I have a Stream Deck here. Okay. If it had a button that said Murray Rothbard button on it, and I could push that button and end the government right now, I would do it without hesitation. Okay. I would, but I do believe that there's a lot of people out there that we're not going to turn the tide of the way they think, and the second best option, well, maybe the third or fourth or fifth best option, because there's cryptocurrency and agorist and education and all this stuff, but maybe the third or fourth best option is we push a libertarian agenda. We get state legislators elected that can push a libertarian agenda, that can roll back these bad laws. Now, let's talk about slavery, because you brought up slavery in the beginning, and I do agree. I think slavery was terrible, it was horrible, it was vile, it should have been abolished. I think the federal government especially, but most governments, almost every kind of government you can possibly talk about, is evil and vile and needs to be abolished. But let's talk about slavery. Had there not been an abolition movement, had the vast majority of people been pro-slavery and taking part in slavery, which was, by the abolition movement, there's some debate over what the intentions were, but would you not accept like people saying, okay, well, I think maybe we need to start trying to change the system any way we can? Would you be an all or nothing if it was slavery? And in fact, I mean, slavery does still exist today with the prison industrial complex. I mean, that's a whole nother debate we can get into, but would you not be for rolling back every single piece of slavery that you possibly could if there was no movement for abolition? That's my question to you.
Well, actually, I totally support what the abolitionists did, which is, I mean, some of them whined to change the law, but what broke slavery was not a change in legislation. It was people saying this law is evil and we're just going to break it. And it got to the point that juries wouldn't convict because enough people said this is evil, I'm not going to say guilty, even though they totally helped, slaves run away. The Underground Railroad was a bunch of nasty criminals, not voting, not petitioning, not asking for a change in the law, but breaking the back of an immoral law to the point that it fell apart. Similar thing with alcohol prohibition. When enough people disobey, it falls apart. And that's one of just the mathematical problems with trying to achieve freedom by way of running for office and politics and stuff. By the time you get enough people that you're anywhere near being able to vote someone into office who you hope is going to vote for something that you hope is going to pass all the other committees and get past all the other politicians to maybe give us a little bit of freedom back, when you were a fifth of the way there and you had 10% of the people on board, those 10% of the people could have broken any law of any empire ever. 10% of the people in this country is 30 million people. If 30 million people openly say, see this law, it's stupid, it's evil, we're going to defy it, and if you come to get us, we're going to shoot you, that's it. Way, way before you would ever get to the point of being able to vote that law out of existence. And that's what happened with the end of slavery is, you only needed enough people that on every jury, there's a few people going, slavery is screwed up, messed up, I'm not going to convict them. And a tiny little percentage of the population helping slaves escape up north and doing all that stuff. And then some of them like openly being, violently rebellious against slave owners to the point it was no longer enforceable. Way before there was any legislative fix. And then politicians do what politicians always do after the fact, and they pretend it was their idea. Like with drug prohibition, we passed a new amendment saying with alcohol prohibition, saying you're allowed to have alcohol. Yeah, that's because the whole thing completely fell apart until you couldn't enforce it. So it's actually an example of open disobedience outrunning political and legislative action to achieve freedom way more than voting for some new slave master would have.
Sure.
So
sure,
the point you guys are talking around is which does government precede culture or does culture precede government? And an example of that recently would be the legalization of weed. Like this question would be for Joshua primarily. Do you think that what caused weed to become legal in so many places was because a lot of activists lobbied politicians and went through the political process to legalize it? Or do you think that the culture changed and made it such that those politicians had to change their magic scribbles, otherwise they appear illegitimate? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I couldn't tell you. I could talk to you about California because I'm from California, born and raised. I know that people petitioned, they lobbied. They had people running for government positions. I mean, elected officials pushing to legalize marijuana. Now, in the end, they did it completely fucking ass backwards, right? I mean, they really the politicians said, okay, we'll legalize it, but we're going to make a ton of fucking money off it for the state, right? But the fact of the matter was that culture and politics kind of go hand in hand. I mean, really, it's very, very hard to get something done with 30 million people in this country without some kind of platform to reach all those people. And I just believe that the Libertarian Party, and one of the reasons why I work so hard for the party, and no one can deny that I do that, is that I believe they can be that platform to change those hearts and minds, right? They can become that vehicle that down on a federal level, on a state level, on a local level, that can actually push people in a direction that's going to make those 30 million people start to disobey those laws. You know, I love anarchist thinkers like, you can look up behind me on one of these sides here, you know, Austrian economics, obviously. I love Larkin. Like, I actually really like Larkin. I think he's great. I think he's done a lot of great things. I love you to death, Patrick. I love Eric July and all these people that are opt-out people who do want to educate people on, you know, the vileness of the government and how opting out is important. I love agorist thinkers like Pete Quinones, and I think they're doing good things, but like I said, I think it's just another tool in the toolbox to rolling back the size and scope of a government. Now, I'm one of those people that I want the whole thing abolished, all of it. I want no one ruling over me and my family. I want us to be able to do whatever we want as long as we aren't aggressing on other people. But I also will take those steps. You know what I mean? If it's just a step that I can take, like lobbying I lobbied my local government for a bar. Okay, before I ever got involved in politics, I walked into a city council meeting. We had a local bar that had, on Sunday evenings, had a all ages open mic night. Right, my city is really bad. I'm from a really bad city. Kids get shot all the time, and they had an opportunity to do something in front of their families, in front of, you know, fans and people that kept them out of trouble. And they wanted to shut this bar down because on Fridays and Saturday nights there had been a lot of fights and stuff. So I went down and I brought 100 people with me down to the city council meeting, and I got up at a lectern for the first time in my entire life, and I lobbied this government, and it saved the bar. It did. It really did. All these people came together. They walked in front of the city council members, and the city council members decided not to shut this bar down. You know, is that me taking part in the political process? Is that me walking in and saying, or was that just a culture thing? You know what I mean? I believe that they go hand in hand, and I believe that it can be used as a tool to push an agenda to get more freedoms. I mean, honestly, we can do whatever we want. We have free will. We can opt out of the system. We can stop paying taxes. We can grow marijuana in our backyards. We can do whatever we want to do. But that system, unfortunately, still fucking exists, and they can still show up to my house tomorrow and shoot me or take me to jail or kill my family, shoot my dog in the side yard. You know what I mean? It still exists. And so it's like I'm a mechanic, right? And I have this toolbox, and there's 3 drawers in this toolbox, right? One of them is cryptocurrency. I 100% think that that's one of the directions this movement needs to take to take this decentralized currency that circumvents the federal government. I think it's an important step for us to take. Another one is people opting out, people getting fed up, people trying to change the culture through podcasts and education and writing books, free ebooks. Thanks, Tom Woods, And then another one is, the political process. We need people at every level of government walking into these city hall meetings, walking into Congress, walking into the U.S. Senate and saying, it's a new dawn, it's a new day, and we're going to change things now and start rolling back the thousands and thousands and thousands of laws that they hold that they can kill you over. So I believe that it's both. I believe that in California, especially, and Washington, when I was living in Washington, it was both. It was culture and it was politics. And it was a lot of lobbying the legislators to change the laws.
See, well, first I'll say something sort of in agreement with you. Like the example you just gave, I don't necessarily object to. I'm not exactly sure what you did, but if a bunch of people show up to politicians and say, don't do that, it's wrong, and then they don't, like, to me, that doesn't have the, like, inherent immorality of give me the ring of power.
I don't want to cut. I just want to say something real. I just want to ask, is that not asking for permission though? Is that not me going to a system that you say don't legitimize and legitimizing it by saying, hey, we need you to not shut this place down. Here's 100 people that are asking you not to shut this place down. Please don't shut this place down. It's important to the city.
That's why I said I'm not sure exactly how you did it. I would much prefer a bunch of people to go in and go, you're not going to shut this place down. And if you say it's shut down, we're going to go there. And if you go there to open it, we're going to shoot you. So don't do that. Of course, you need the numbers for that to actually work. you're actually seeing that in some places with these idiotic, insane lockdowns, with people just going, we're not locking down. And even some of their own sheriffs are like, yeah, we're not locking down either. So I don't know exactly how you ask. Even asking nicely, that, you know, that sort of legitimizes it, but I still, like, I wouldn't complain as loudly about that as people saying, like I said, give me the ring of power. You mentioned, but what I wanted to get to is you mentioned rolling back the laws. And so to me, that perfectly sums up what is completely wrong about trying to use political action, because it's not an analog. There's not an analog spectrum between tyranny and freedom. It's digital. Either you own yourself or somebody else has the right to own you. Those are the options. Now, you can hope that somebody nicer and more permissive owns you. That's still 100% slavery. You can hope that the guy who owns you doesn't whip you as hard and he only makes you work 10 hours a day in his cotton field. Good for you. That's still 100% pro-slavery. So when somebody goes in and talks about rolling back taxes, that's, if you're saying, well, right now we're getting taxed this, we're going for this. The libertarians want to focus on, look how much we're cutting it. And I'm looking over here and going, yeah, but you still want me robbed by force, by authoritarian thugs. That's not okay. And every once in a while, there'll be somebody in the party who actually says, all taxation is immoral and evil. It should all be done away with. People should just disobey it. We don't even need their legislative permission. But I don't even remember the last time I've seen somebody in the Libertarian Party actually come out and say, maybe Patrick.
There's a lot of hold on. There's a lot of people in the Libertarian Party that believe 100% of taxation is theft. That's a huge thing in the Libertarian Party. They
say that.
Huge.
They say that. There are people that say that. I said that. But they don't get anywhere in the party structure when they do that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I came in third out of fourth in my state when I ran on a NAP-compliant platform that just...
welcome to Texas.
And I'm running, I'm running against somebody that wants to tax people for education, and I'm running against somebody that wants to tax people for defense of the borders.
Sure.
In the Libertarian Party, these are candidates, leading party candidates in Texas running.
Well, I think that might be where some of
I lost utterly.
Well, that might be where some of the breakdown is too, as well. And one of the reasons why I support the Mises Caucus.
I could just suck as a candidate. I mean, to be fair.
No, you're a great candidate. I was actually at the Texas State Convention when you gave your speech in 2018, and it was beautiful. It was the best speech given there. You know, I think you and Corey both did really good and should have done a lot better. But I'm going to say the Mises Caucus, one of the reasons why I support the Mises Caucus and I work with the Mises Caucus of the Libertarian Party is that they are anti-taxation. They are anti-laws. They are, most of them are for abolition completely of at least the federal government. That's one of the reasons why I supported the Mises Caucus and have worked so closely with the Mises Caucus. But there's a breakdown in the Libertarian Party as well that you guys, hold on, Patrick, hold on. There is a central divide in the Libertarian Party. There's a central divide in the Libertarian Party that started when Cato split. Okay, it was Murray Rothbard is one of the founders of the Libertarian Party, and it would be hard fought for you to read For a New Liberty and say that he was not for the abolition of all government, but they worked together, the Koch brothers and Murray and Cato, and there was the split, right? And Murray left, the Mises Institute became a big thing, and they finally kind of just took their ball and left. They kind of just left the party because these blue-pilled, what we call beltway libertarians had taken it over, and they're the ones who are like, school vouchers are okay. Maybe we can have some luxury taxes. Maybe we can do, those are a completely different sect of libertarians. So the reason why I'm pushing so hard to become leadership of the party, and the reason why the Mises Caucus is working so hard to bolster new candidates and bolster new party leadership, is because we want a libertarian party that is going to work in an image that I think that mostly Larkin and Patrick would agree with is our candidates are trying to get into positions to nullify these laws. If you believe in jury nullification, why don't you believe in somebody running for mayor that can make their city a gun sanctuary city? Or, you know what I mean? This is what the Libertarian Party is supposed to be about. And it's one of the reasons why I'm running to become the leader of the party.
Can I ask you a simple question that I think would make almost any libertarian?
Quick aside.
Quick
aside on the Mises Caucus, because if what you're saying is true, and that is the libertarians in the Libertarian Party, why did they deny me their endorsement? Why are they denying you their endorsement right now?
They endorsed me two runs in a row?
They denied me. They denied me over the other two opponents. The Mises Caucus. Come on. No, they play, all I'm saying, and I'll shut up about
I thought they did endorse you.
No.
I thought they did endorse you.
No, they play politics. They play politics like all the rest. Anyway, sorry.
I'm pretty sure they endorsed you in 2018. I'm going to look it up because I was you realize that I'm the candidate committee chair for the Mises Caucus, right?
Look it up.
I was. And I can tell you 100%, I pushed for your endorsement. I am almost
I hope you pushed for me. That's awesome.
pushed.
Larkin, what were you about to say?
Listen, this is Anarchapulco. I'm having whiskey, okay? Everyone relax.
Get your cigars and whiskey. Let's do
it. Here's my question, and I think almost any libertarian candidate in public trying to get votes is going to get really uncomfortable with this very simple question. Let's say there's a libertarian candidate who's running for office and says, I want to reduce taxes by 30%. If you got in office and you got that enacted and the taxes were reduced by 30%, do people still have a moral obligation to pay what's left? Did that legislative act change anything at all about the moral righteousness of the forced extortion known as taxation?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that. You cut out.
Would such a legislative act change anything at all about the moral legitimacy of the forced extortion of whatever level of taxation is left? In other words, if my taxes were this big, but luckily a libertarian got in office and now they're this big, did that change? Did that act of legislation, did that tax reduction change anything at all about my moral obligation to give my money to a political ruling class?
Not at all. And it would still be, for people who think like you and me, I promise you, it would still be our moral duty to push back on that. Right. And I believe that 100%, but I'm going to be just a little bit happier with having 70% of my money back. You know what I mean? A little bit. Right. I am going to be a little excited about it.
Would be a little bit happier if he only got 10 lashings instead of 20
exactly.
lashings.
And they would have.
100% a slave. If somebody else gets to decide how much of my money I get to keep. Well, the thing is, if somebody's advocating this level of taxation instead of this level of taxation, they are 100% advocating that somebody else gets to tell me how much of what I produce I'm allowed to keep. That is 100% an authoritarian position.
I don't disagree. And I would not work with that candidate personally. So there's, you know what I mean? There's my thing. I think, but let me tell you this. If I'm working with a candidate, it's like, okay, I'm running for governor of this state. And my first thing when I win governor is I'm going to abolish property tax. First thing. Okay. And I have, if he doesn't get elected, nobody's going to abolish property tax, right? We know the Republicans aren't going to abolish property tax. We know the Democrats are probably going to raise property tax, right? And I own a property, right? I don't want to pay those property taxes. So I have the opportunity to lobby some of my friends and say, hey, man, I know this system's kind of stupid, but we have a guy here who wants to end our property tax. We're all homeowners. We'd like to keep more money for our children and ourselves. If this person doesn't get elected, we're still going to pay property tax because if I don't, they're going to come to my house with guns. They're going to arrest me. They're going to put me in jail. If I resist, they're going to shoot me in the face, right? Maybe they'll kill my family and maybe they'll kill my dog. But if I can vote for this guy that's going to end my property tax and make sure that I receive more of the money that I work my ass off for every day, then I'm probably going to go down to the ballot box and be like, hey, fuck it, here we go, right? Now, I understand that it would be better if we had a candidate that's like, in my first day in office, I'm going to abolish the state tax. I'm going to abolish the property tax. I'm going to abolish the gas tax. I'm going to abolish all these taxes. They're all gone. They're all done, right? I agree that that's a much better option. But would you go vote for that person? You wouldn't go vote for that person either.
No, because that acknowledges the notion that it's his to abolish, that it's his choice of how much of what I earn I get to keep.
So what are you going to do in the meantime? Are you not paying taxes anymore now?
I'm going to be quiet about what I do.
I'm just saying, if there's a way, listen, if there's a way that you're not paying taxes, please send me a signal message and let's talk about it, because I would love to not be paying taxes. But I have a family to support, right? 6 kids, 6 children,
obviously.
And I have to pay what they tell me to pay, or I'm going to be shot in the face or brought to jail. So if you have a way out of that, if you're giving these seminars around the country and you're teaching people how to opt out of that system, please let me know. I would love to do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
I would.
I'm not. And there's totally a risk. As you may or may not know, I spent a year in federal prison for not buying the IRS.
I do, yeah. Right.
And so I'm not at all denying, basically, I'm not denying that having a slightly gentler slave master would, on a practical basis, be less painful. I'm saying that to advocate a slightly kinder slave master is to advocate slavery. And let me ask you this. Suppose you have a time machine, jump back in time to 1830s or something, and you're there, and there's a guy coming along and say, oh, I think the way people, these plantation owners, the way they're treating their slaves is just horrible. So I'm going to go out there and give this rousing speech and say, of course you're slaves. Of course that's legitimate. I'm not advocating anything, don't break the law, don't run away or anything. But I want to pass these laws that limit how much they can whip you and how much they can force you to work every hour. Would you endorse that guy? Would you say, yep, I like his message? What the hell kind of message is that? Would you like that message?
I don't think it's personally a good message. No, I don't. But
good, me neither. Which is why I don't support anybody running for political office.
I'm guessing at the time there might have been a couple of slaves who were like, we would love that. Please roll some of this shit back. It's tearing our lives apart, right?
Yeah.
Anything we can get to make our life a little better for our families and ourselves, we will take, because nothing else is getting it done. Nothing else is getting it done.
And
right?
So it can maybe give a little bit of practical relief. I mean, that hardly ever happens either, but we might get to that later. Maybe it can give some practical relief, and it's still 100% pro-slavery. I'm not going to be pro-slavery. I'm not going to cheer for a pro-slavery position or a pro-authoritarian position just because the guy who wants the ring of power says that he's going to let me have a little bit more freedom, let me keep a little bit more of my money.
Sure.
Now, I would respect somebody who ran for office saying, one, it makes no stinking difference whether I win or not. It makes no stinking difference what the legislation says. What all of you should do is not try to get me into office. You should try to find ways to disobey and resist the ruling class any way you can, regardless of what crook is sitting on the throne. That I could actually respect. And, people like Patrick have done messages like that. The vast majority of politicians I've seen and people running for office in the Libertarian Party talk about legislative change. And the reason I said no just then is I don't want somebody saying, I'll go in and abolish it, because they're still talking about using the ring of power as if it's legitimate. They're still strengthening the superstition of authoritarianism and the notion that we need their permission to keep our own damn money. That is strengthening the single biggest threat to humanity, the idea that those crooks actually have the right to rule us. And to reinforce the problem, along with the promise of making it a little bit more comfortable on a practical level, is actually worse. And I'm almost hesitant to talk about this in public, because if they did it, they would reinforce their regime for ages. To get someone in there who would do exactly what you're talking about, actually significantly reduce taxation and give a whole bunch of freedoms till people went, yay, a nice master, time to go back to sleep, and not pay any attention because now we're comfortable enough that we're not going to notice. To me, it's actually a scarier idea. I would rather have it be bad enough that normal people start to go, this is evil and insane, and maybe the whole idea is bogus, than to have a kind enough slave owner and master that people go, well, I guess this isn't so bad. Because where we are today is a direct result of the Founding Fathers making a ruling class that people could go, I guess that's not so bad. That's why we're here.
We have the majority of this country right now openly asking for fascism. Okay. Literally, that's what's going on right now.
A lot of
We
them,
are
yeah.
asking. We have at least a large portion of this country today asking government to lock you in your homes, to force you to put a diaper on your face, to force you not to hang out with your families. Okay, and what has been accomplished? I mean, okay, let's frame something, and I just want to hear your reaction to this and how you would respond. I mean, what you feel. Larkin Rose, old man Larkin Rose, long time from now, passes away. Leaves
I'm already an old
leaves the. No, you're not that old. So you take the great celestial, discharge, right? And you've left, and what has been yes, I love that. What has been accomplished, with what you're doing is do we have violent insurrection? Is that what's going to take place? Do you think we're going to lead a violent insurrection? Do you think that you will reach 300 million people and they'll finally say, fuck, this is enough? Because I'll tell you, these people keep voting themselves into more and more tyranny, and now they're openly asking for fascism. I mean, straight up, like Mussolini style fascism, where the federal government has all the control over your every entire move, including whether or not you can leave your house, whether or not you can run your business, whether or not you can go outside with your face covered or not, whether you can hang out with your grandmother. These people are openly asking for this every single day.
Now,
what is getting better?
First of all, I don't think it's that big a percentage of the population that's actually asking for that. I think mostly that's astroturfing, as they call it, government trying to make it look that way when the vast majority of normal people know this was sort of a ridiculous overthing. But to me, the number and percentages of that don't even matter. So I'll concede that point or whatever. Like I don't particularly care what the percentage is. As far as what matters, the only thing that matters to get from authoritarianism to freedom is how many people understand freedom. When I became a voluntaryist, I'm pretty sure there wasn't the word voluntaryist yet. When I became an anarchist in 1996, a quarter of a century ago, I knew zero other anarchists. My wife at the time, Tessa, and I sort of nudged each other off the political cliff accidentally by talking about stuff and talking to other people. So I knew one. And for a long time, it was one. And then after several years, it was 10. Now it's literally tens of thousands of people. Now, as a percentage of the population, that's tiny. But the only thing that matters is, to use the analogy again, the number of slaves who figured out we're not supposed to be slaves and okay. And incidentally, Frederick Douglass wrote about that as a former slave, describing how most of the slaves thought slavery was legitimate because they grew up in it, and well, this is just how it is. And like I've mentioned a million times, a lot of them viewed themselves as thieves if they ran away because they were stealing themselves from the master. That is how well indoctrinated they were. As long as the people believe the evil is legitimate, it's going to keep happening. When enough people understand it's not legitimate, that is the thing that matters, and it's going to fall. It doesn't need a revolution. There's a high likelihood that when they get desperate, authoritarian control freaks will get nasty, and some people will have to resist or run and hide or whatever. But it's not about an overthrow. You can't, as V for Vendetta said, you can't kill an idea. You can't shoot. Ideas are bulletproof. Good ideas and bad ideas. What matters, what will get us to a free society, and I don't mean it might, I mean it absolutely will. What I'm doing, what we are doing, is going to get to the entire population of the world. That is absolutely inevitable. To me, it's only a matter of time, because the insanity of this superstition is a one-way road. When you see through it, people don't go back in droves. When it's just a belief thing, that is what needs to be focused on, is people's beliefs. And the fact that we're a tiny percentage now matters way less than the fact that there's an exponential growth of it. And if you get to the point that 10 million Americans identify as voluntarists and say, I don't feel like I have any obligation to go along with thuggery just because they call it law, there is no force in the world that can control them. And we're headed in that direction. And the idea of, well, let's get a nicer master to give us permission is actually the other frickin' direction. That's the direction that says, yes, it's legitimate. Yes, we need the laws to tell us what we're allowed to do. Yes, we need a kind master who will be permissive. Then it's legitimate. Then we can all be quiet. Then we can settle down. And that is actually, like I said, that's a pro-authoritarian position, but it's also the smartest thing they can do. And the funny thing is, I'm glad they're being as stupid as they are and charging as fast into fascism, because a lot of normal people are actually waking up and going, what? Wait, since when did they have the right to tell me I can't leave my house? What the hell? Whereas if you get a kinder, nicer master, people go, oh, well, I guess I won't complain about this. And then you get to where we are now. Again, this is digital. This is not analog. I either own myself or somebody else has the right to rule me. If you accept that somebody else has the right to rule me and then bicker over how nice he should be to me, that is 100% anti-freedom. It's not the way to achieve what humanity is supposed to be.
Well, I have just a couple of quick counterpoints. One, 61% of the population did not vote for a president in 2016. I'm not sure the actual figures in 2020. To me, those people are already opting out of the system, but they're still being controlled by the system. Two, since 1996, you say that the anarchist movement has grown exponentially. I don't disagree with you. And I think that's probably the biggest it's ever been. And we have the internet now. Back in the dark ages in 1996, they didn't have the internet the way we do now. We weren't live streaming video. We weren't putting videos on YouTube. We probably had AIM chat rooms, and that was it. And yet, during that time, we have seen the Patriot Act. We have seen numerous NDAA acts. The state has grown and grown and grown and grown while this anarchist movement has grown. So I understand that it sucks to legitimize this apparatus, this overbearing state apparatus, but wouldn't it be good to use all the tools in your toolbox, including the one that goes in and lobbies to get these politicians to stop making these bad fucking laws? I don't see how you can say, okay, well, the education's a good thing, nullification's a good thing, running campaigns that make fun of the system's a good thing. Shout out to Vermin Supreme. Those are all good things, but this is all part of the same toolbox. And just doing it on a national stage or a state stage or a local stage is also an important tool in the toolbox. I mean, if you had a problem as a mechanic and you're looking at this problem and going, well, I have all these different drawers in my toolbox, but I'm not going to use that one fucking drawer because that legitimizes the problem, right? Okay, I get it.
Because we're trying to fix a flat, and that one drawer just has hand grenades in it.
I disagree. But here's the thing. What if you're assigning these motives to people who are working within the Libertarian Party? What if you're just blindly assigning motives, saying these people are going in there with the intent to have a better master? What if a lot of the people coming into the Libertarian Party right now are those people who are fucking fed up with the clown show that is the federal and state governments, and they're coming in because they see it as another tool to abolish this bullshit? Then that's okay, right?
No, because it's not a tool to abolish it. It's a tool to reinforce it.
That's where we mainly disagree.
People believe in the divine right of politicians and to play their game and say, I will legislate this. And if elected, if you do the magic, pseudo-religious ritual and put me on the throne, then I will try to bestow upon you my legislative holy permission to keep a little bit more of your money. That's strengthening the only problem there actually is. And when you mention that things have gotten worse since 96, which they have, they've also gotten worse since the 70s when the Libertarian Party started.
Damn, dude. Shots over the bow.
All right. Let me make a comment.
As they're getting worse and worse.
Go ahead.
That isn't even what matters in the long run, because governments don't go like this. They go either because there's a revolution or a civil war or an economic collapse or something just makes them fall over. And the thing that we need to make it fall over to actually have it be long-term positive is not a revolution or a civil war or arguing over which crook should sit on the throne next. It's enough people disobeying so that as nasty and authoritarian as their commands get, people just don't stinking care and they don't obey, and there's nothing the ruling class can do about it. Which is why I say I actually think in the long run, even though it's scary and damaging in the short run for individuals targeted by it, in the long run, I think it's a good sign that they're this desperate to try to do power grabs all over the place and then, losing them here and there. Like, we're going to do this. Whoops, that didn't work. We have to back out. Well, we're going to get away with this maybe. That the orders from the rulers are not the measure of how close we are to freedom. The number of people who feel obligated to obey is the measure of how close we are to freedom.
Which is
I want to make a bumper sticker of that.
It's a lot. That is a great tagline, but it's a lot of fucking people. It is a lot of people that do.
You brought up something that I think would be a good, valid thing for both of you to point to. So as this party has grown, you also have people like you mentioned, Vermin Supreme. A lot of his campaign team were communists. Anarcho and libertarian communists.
Fully aware.
How is that at all serving liberty? How is that at all cool? Why would you want to run under a label that those people are welcomed into?
Well, I mean, what are we supposed to do? Remove them all? Tell them you all gotta fucking leave right now?
No,
trust me,
I throw a punch and then Larkin has to defend. So
I know. Good job, buddy. No, but before we move on, I do want to bring up one alternate thing here. So, Larkin, would you agree or disagree that the majority of what the federal government, especially the federal government, does is actually pushed by big special interest lobbying, right? Like the tech companies and big corporations like Amazon and even Walmart and military industrial complex contractors like Raytheon and stuff like that. Would you agree that a lot of what the government does is because of those people?
Yeah. It always struck me as funny to call it special interest, because basically special interest is what people call it when somebody else convinces government thugs to do what they want. Whereas representing the people is what people call it when they convince the government thugs to do what they want. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, getting into some positions in the federal government where we can tell those people to go fuck themselves might be a good idea. Don't you think? You really don't think that that's a good idea? No? Because no matter what we do as these lowly serfs in this country, those people with all that fucking money that deal with this federal government are going to continue to do that, and they're going to continue to kill us and put us in rape cages until we rise up and have a violent insurrection, which is not close, man. I don't think it's that close. I really don't.
No, but those aren't the two options. In fact, neither of those options do any good, because a violent insurrection doesn't do any good in the long run if not enough people actually believe in self-ownership and just want a different ruler. And by the time enough people do understand that, a violent insurrection is completely unnecessary. You can literally disobey them out of existence. You might have to resist here and there, but it's not, let's go overthrow them. It's let's leave them alone and they can babble on in some corner about how important they are, and the rest of us ignore them, and they don't even have any enforcers because we were their enforcers. And none of us are dumb enough to go, volunteer to be the thugs of politicians anymore, which, by the way, is happening. For the first time ever, the U.S. military didn't meet their recruitment quotas. And all over the AP for years now, police departments have been saying, we can't get enough people to want to be cops because everybody hates the cops. That is a sign of progress.
Sure. Are you familiar with Senator Lionhelm from Australia, by any chance? I know it's an obscure name.
No, I pay no attention to the.
All right, he's actually not in Parliament anymore, but he was elected, by people who were pretty much fed up with the government. He was like the only libertarian in their Parliament or whatever the hell they call it over there. I actually interviewed the guy one time, but he would get up before Congress and the Senate there, or the Parliament, and quote Murray Rothbard. And quote, he definitely quoted, I'm trying to remember the other quotes he put out. I don't know, a lot of anarchist thinkers and Austrian economists and stuff like that. Definitely F.A. Hayek a couple times. Now, that was on their national news broadcast, all the time. And so he had the opportunity, because of his platform, because of his position, to educate people. Now, Are you not okay with people that are in these positions actually educating their constituency and actually telling them, hey, yes, I'm in this position, but this position should be abolished, or this position is bullshit. These people are like Ron Paul standing up before Congress and calling them all fucking psychopaths on national television. Do you not support that at all?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I wanted to get to the thing of, well, it gives us a platform to spread the message, and it depends what the message is. Like, I don't know the guy who you were talking about, but if somebody's up there saying we need to change this legislation and do that and the other thing and the other thing, and then reading stuff, that's a completely, schizophrenic message if you're treating it as if it's legitimate, as if the law matters. But if somebody just goes in there and makes fun of it and said, this is all bogus, it doesn't matter what the scribbles. And I loved Ron Paul's closing comments on the House floor, last thing he ever said in front of Congress. And he just admitted politics didn't do any good. He admitted, I've been here for a bazillion years and I didn't accomplish anything legislatively. And voting is not the answer. What matters is what people believe, not who's in office and not who they vote for. I mean, that's paraphrasing, but you can go look up his speech. And I was like, excellent. That's exactly what I've been saying about him for years, to the degree he spreads the ideas of self-ownership. And there's been sort of self-contradictory stuff, because then he sort of has worshipped the Constitution and gone back and forth. And so, there's inconsistencies there. But to the degree he got people thinking about self-ownership and non-aggression, like, he started a lot of people in the direction that ended them up as anarchists. And I like that message being spread. The thing is, if you spread a message that says taxation is theft, and by the way, we need to get our masters to write down on paper with their magic voodoo legalese scribbles a thing that tells us that we're allowed to keep a little bit more, you're arguing with yourself. That's not any sort of coherent message. And even to run for office and say, if elected, my agenda will be, the only candidate I have respect for is somebody who said, I don't give a crap whether I get elected or not. It doesn't make any stinking difference what I have the right to do. I'm still just me. Like, nobody should vote for me. That's ridiculous. But if I have your ear, I'll explain to you why it's ridiculous. And if for some bizarre reason a bunch of people vote for me after I told them not to, then I'll keep telling them.
I would contend that that's all Libertarian Party candidates. For the vast majority of Libertarian Party candidates. No, listen, first of all, we had 1,000 candidates in 2018 across the country, right? And we hadn't won a state house seat in more than 2 decades. Okay, they didn't think they were going to win, Larkin. They knew the vast majority of our candidates at the state and federal level know that they're not going to win. They're using that platform to educate their constituency on libertarian ideals, on how much bullshit there and red tape and just terrible bureaucracy that their state and local and federal governments are filled with. It is a good idea to do those things, regardless of if you agree with the system or not.
You just described 2 massively different things. Lots of people, including Republicans, and because I grew up a constitutionalist, Republican-leaning statist, lots of them did an outstanding job of bashing collectivist garbage and welfare garbage and wasteful spending and blah, blah, all these things they're doing wrong, and they were all authoritarians. If a libertarian is out there going, we think this this is wasteful, and this is horrible, and this law is unjust, and there shouldn't be the war on drugs, and blah, 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 and they don't get around to saying, by the way, nobody has the right to rule you, their message is worthless, because by not saying that in almost every frickin' sentence, they're reinforcing the notion that, it's horrible that our slave masters whip us so hard. Of course we need slave masters. Of course they have to whip us some, but this is just unreasonable. That is the implied message in the speech of almost every single libertarian I've ever seen run for office, because they don't dare to actually harp on the principles, because they know they won't get elected. So they play the game and they get political, and it's just gross and ugly to watch. To complain that the slave master whips us too hard is to miss the whole freaking point. There shouldn't be slave masters. And if any libertarian gives any speech and you can't tell that he believes that government is 100% illegitimate start to finish, then the message he is spreading is completely counterproductive.
Okay, so
Josh,
despite our presidential
Josh, respond to that,
candidates,
and then I'm going to refocus us. So give a
Okay,
quick response to that.
despite our presidential candidates over the let's say the last I don't know 4 election cycles, which candidates are you talking about?
You mean libertarian?
Yeah,
All of them.
which ones? Because I know them
Well,
personally,
okay.
all over the country.
Yeah,
Okay, and I can tell you that
Okay.
outside of our last 2 presidential elections, which was Joe Jorgensen and Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, who I disdain with all my heart,
yeah.
are most of our state and local and even some federal candidates are doing exactly what you're saying. There's talking about how ridiculous the institution of government is and how ridiculous all these laws are. I know personally 100 candidates around the country that are doing that.
Okay, let me
different levels.
refocus. Stop. Let me refocus.
Okay.
So the point of contention is political action philosophically and morally consistent with being a libertarian voluntarist? Larkin's position seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, that there are some very specific ways in which to use the Libertarian Party as a candidate that might be okay, but most of them send the wrong message, and they are they are inconsistent with being a libertarian voluntarist. Joshua says, did I get that right, Larkin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Joshua's position seems to be sort of the opposite. It seems like that he agrees that there's a lot of ways that a lot of libertarians get it wrong, but there's still plenty of ways to leverage the Libertarian Party to try and get elected, to find freedom where possible. Did I get you correct, Joshua?
Yeah, mostly. I think that the parties should be more of an educational outlet than it is, but yeah.
Okay, so let's put a head on it. Larkin, can you describe a specific type of candidate that does something wrong? It doesn't have to be an actual specific real world one, but I want to find a type of candidate that Joshua would agree is acceptable and consistent with principle, and that Larkin disagrees is acceptable and consistent with principle, and then maybe we can actually debate using that specific example. Larkin, do you have an example?
Yeah, literally any candidate who ever says, if elected, I will.
Okay. All right. Joshua, do you disagree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I do. I think that if, well, first of all, the way that candidates have to frame their platforms, right? They usually have to message to their constituency. They usually know what the big issues are in their communities, especially in local races. So I think a candidate that's like goes into a campaign and is like, I'm going to abolish fucking all the things, all of them, but puts on their platform that they're going to start with, or this is the one that they run on with property tax. And then we're going to stop, we're going to tell our police force to stop, going after people for these crimes. And I think that that's, a start to showing a constituency in your local community or in your state how libertarian ideals work on the political stage. And so, I believe in my heart, and I know personally a lot of candidates around this country that have run on libertarian tickets that are like, this is my platform, but I want to abolish all this shit. And they even sometimes, a lot of times talk about it.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
that
Time
doesn't pass
me
my
out, buddy.
test either. That doesn't pass my test either.
I'm
If
aware.
somebody says, if
I'm aware.
elected, I will abolish it all. You already failed after the
Yeah.
first
So
two.
your
Now we're
position
getting
is
somewhere. Stop.
Right.
Now
So
we're
you're-
Larkin. Now we're getting somewhere. What specifically about that is inconsistent with being a libertarian or voluntarist? And then let's
Because
find
to
that
say, if
let's find that
elected, I
principle
will.
and then debate that principle.
Okay. To say, if elected, I will blah, 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 never mind the possibilities of getting elected or not, it already implies that getting into that position of power will give them the right to change things, to give a legislative solution, to give legal permission to us, which is already reinforcing the insane notion that we need somebody to go sit on the throne and tell us we're allowed to be free.
Okay, Josh.
But
why
outside
is-
of you-
Elected.
Josh, why is
But
it
the
okay?
problem is-
why is it okay to do those things as a libertarian?
because the problem is outside of our circles, that notion has already been reinforced to millions and millions and millions of people.
That
So
wasn't the question.
I'm not saying, hold on, I'm not done. I'm not saying it makes it any better, but I'm saying that being able to chip away at those people's sensibilities through the political process and through changing legislation is still much better than not doing so at all. You know what I mean? So like, I get the all or nothing take, but I think it's philosophically consistent to chip away at look, if I was locked in a prison, okay, and I was sitting around waiting for the bazooka to come out so that I could blow a hole in the wall, that's totally philosophically consistent with me wanting to escape prison. And let me make myself clear. All politics is a fucking prison, right? It is, for all of us. But if I also had the opportunity to take a toothpick and start chipping away at the wall day by day by day by day until I got that wall and could escape that prison, I'm going to do that too until the bazooka comes along. So I don't understand how getting rid of this law but not being able to do anything about this law is not morally or philosophically consistent with being a voluntarist when we already live in this process. We already live in this, society of millions of people's makings that can get me killed for just not doing the things that the government tells me to do. So I'm going to take every little incident. No, I'm not. It's morally consistent because we're still attacking the bad things, right? We're still attacking those things that are bad, that are hurting ourselves and other people around the country, even if it's not all the things at once.
This is my bad. I want both of you to define what it means to be libertarian and voluntarist, because that's what we're comparing these actions to. So, Larkin, can you tell us, in your conception, what it means to be libertarian voluntarist?
To advocate and abide by the concepts of self-ownership and non-aggression, and voluntarism, the understanding that weird scribbles in elections nothing gives anybody the right to forcibly dominate and rule somebody else. But I think we just got to the sort of the crux of the difference, is that when you're talking about trying to make it a little bit less unpleasant on the practical basis, if you can do that neutrally, like I said, if somebody goes and votes against the referendum, okay. But as soon as somebody says, if elected, what they're doing isn't, well, I'm trying to chisel through this wall. They're reinforcing the wall. And you just said, well, other things already reinforce that. Yeah, but to have the group that claims to be the pro-freedom philosophy reinforcing that authoritarianism is the worst thing there could possibly be. It's literally worse than the Libertarian Party not existing at all, is to give people the idea of, oh, if you want freedom, then the thing to go is go over to this party that says if you put them on the throne and give them the ring of power, then blah, blah, blah. Incidentally, I don't want to do any spoilers, but this totally comes up in the movie version of the Jones Plantation.
I can't wait, man. I actually can't wait for that movie. I'm excited. But I'm going to tell you this, and I think you see the wall as the people,
hold on,
and I see the wall as the law.
Hold on. You have to say that again, but start by answering the same question I asked Larkin. What does it mean to be a libertarian or voluntarist? And then you can respond to what he said.
I think it's the same thing. I think it's the principles of self-ownership. I think it's the non-aggression principle. We agree there. I mean, we agree fully. We just, awesome. I think, so I'm just going to say it one more time. He sees, this is my observation. You can totally correct me if I'm wrong. You see the wall as the people, as these people, right? And I see the wall as the policies, the terrible fucking policies that govern our life every day, right? And if I have the opportunity to get someone into a position to chip at the fucking policies that make it so they can kill me and take me to a rape cage if I don't pay them their tithe, right? Then I'm gonna do that. And if I see an office that I can run for that I think I can win that election and bring that to more people around my community, I'm gonna do that too, because it's all just chipping at that same system that you fucking hate, right?
Well, I think you just pointed out. I think you just pointed out the fundamental difference. To think that the policies are the problem is to accept the legitimacy of government. The policies are never the problem. The law is never the problem. Yeah, on a practical basis, there are nastier laws and nicer laws. The problem is the idea that they have the right to do any of that. And to strengthen that belief while trying to be nicer about the policies, to try to change the magic voodoo scribbles of the ruling class, is to accept the notion that the ruling class has a right to rule, and that is, you already lost. Like I said, if you think you need their permission to keep your money or to be free, you already lost. You already have accepted that you're a slave. Because by definition, if it's somebody else's choice, whether you get to be free by way of their policies, you're already a slave no matter what they do, which means you already lost. And that's my problem with the entire Libertarian Party and anybody who starts any speech with, if elected, if you give me the ring of power, no, you already fail. Because you're pretending that makes any stinking difference, that their scribbles have any moral significance, have any legitimacy to them. And to reinforce that when that is the entire problem is 100% counterproductive.
So I agree. Like, and you're saying that I accept that they have ruling over my life. I don't. I do not. But all 10 of my neighbors do, right? All 10 of my neighbors accept that our local government has the authority to rule over all of our lives, including mine. Now, if I let my lawn grow too long, the city's going to come here and they're going to fine me, right? And none of my neighbors are going to protect me because that's the law. Hey, man, that's the law. That's the law, right? Now, if I go down to my city council and I file, my name and say, hey, I'm going to run for this position, right? And I go and tell my neighbors, hey, I'm running for this position because I'm going to change this law about this stupid fucking grass, right? And they all vote for me, and I get in there, and now I'm able to veto that stupid law where they can fine me, $100 a day if I don't mow my lawn. Like, I don't see how that it's me trying to change the minds of my neighbors through the political process by showing them that it's stupid. But how do you know that I didn't?
No, but I mean, what you just described, your description of success didn't change their mind. They still believe that politician scribbles matter. You just changed the magic voodoo scribbles so they can feel a little bit of relief from one particular piece of stupidity. They're still status as long as they believe that somebody has the,
and there's
the right
always
to
gonna,
rule them.
and as long as we exist, there's always going to be status. Unfortunately, there's always going to be status. Now, someday maybe anarchists will overtake the status. You don't think they'll ever? Governments constantly regrow all the time, right? I mean, look at Germany; just got
Because
destroyed. The Nazis. I know they did. That's what I'm saying. Is these people believe it? They believe it. They have opted into this system from birth, and they don't give a shit about us telling them that, hey, you're not supposed to aggress on somebody else, man. You know what I mean? They don't give a shit. They don't care.
That's what has to change.
I agree. And while there's nothing's going to change,
until you
right?
change that, thinking about scribbles doesn't do anything.
Right, nothing's going to change. So the important thing is education, which is you do a great job of that. Don't let. I'm not trying to take anything away from you, but if I can educate somebody through the political process as well, I think it's just another avenue to do that. And I think we have a lot of great candidates in the Libertarian Party and growing. I mean, this is a movement in the Libertarian Party that is growing. I don't see how you can't see the value in reaching out to the normies through the political process to try and make them more voluntaries, to try and get them to understand voluntarist thought, to get them to understand that these laws are fucking ridiculous, that the edicts given to them about having to stay in their homes and put these diapers on their faces and close their businesses that feed their families. I don't understand how you can't see the usefulness in that and how you think that can be morally not inconsistent with voluntarism, because I believe it is.
Because to say the slave master shouldn't whip us so hard is not to say the slave master shouldn't own us at all. But
I never said that.
You talking just now gave me a fun idea of a follow-up to this thing, which is find me the campaign websites of your 10 favorite libertarian candidates for any office anywhere in the country. And I don't know what the outcome will be because I don't follow political stuff of any party.
I will pull it up.
I want to see if I can, if you get, or even find one. Let's shoot for 10, but if I find one, I'll be impressive. That does not write in their own website, running for whatever office, dog catcher to president.
I'm ready. Give me a name.
Reinforce the notion of the legitimacy of the ruling class.
Give me a name, Josh. What's your favorite candidate right now?
Start with Patrick Smith, and then we'll go from there. Okay. But I did ask you. But I did. Hey, I want to be very fair here, because I asked you to give me candidates about 20 minutes ago that you say are doing these things, and you couldn't give me any, probably outside of some federal candidates.
He said all of them.
You couldn't give me any. Which one? Yeah, no. Did you say all of them?
He said all of them.
Literally everyone I've ever heard.
Oh, wow.
And I was asked to speak at a
I asked you who. Now you're asking me for personal names, but you couldn't give me any personal names. Let's see.
Yeah, well, I don't care about people running for office, whether they have any prayer in hell of winning or not. I don't mean show me the names, prove there is someone. I mean, I don't even care about the name at the top of it. I want to see, and maybe you can find something. That would be great. I mean, Patrick's probably your best first choice of an example.
Well, I mean, he's
of the
most consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, who doesn't in their own campaign reinforce the notion of authoritarian rulership. Because if you're talking about we need this platform to spread the message, and the message includes assuming that legislative power is legitimate, your message already sucks. So I want to see some, and there may very well be some. And I don't mean like right now on the spot show them to me. I just mean in the coming days, if you can find some, it would be a fun follow-up to see, because people said, oh, listen to all this great stuff, Jorgensen says condemning this and condemning this. I was like, yeah, it's cool quote. And then you go to her website and it totally assumes the right of the ruling class to rule. She just wants it to be nicer. And it's like, that is not a worthwhile message to say, we want slave masters that are very kind to us. Ew, no, we don't.
Sure. I agree.
So
the thing is that's, we actually agree there. Like, that's where we agree. I just think that you and I disagree on, let's take every fucking possible avenue we can find to roll this thing back. You know what I mean? That's our
I'm saying one of your avenues goes all the way in the wrong direction. It takes the idea of freedom, of pretend freedom, and tries to pass off limited enslavement as the pro-freedom choice, and that's worse than doing nothing.
Okay,
doing nothing in the state continues to grow, and we've seen that.
We've both agreed on the foundation, which is what it means to be libertarian voluntarist. Larkin has explained why he thinks it is incongruent with the definition that we've agreed on to take actions that lead people to participate in government or to legitimize it. So it's on you at this point, Joshua, as far as I'm concerned, since you agree on the definition of what it means to be a libertarian voluntarist, how is it okay to get people to how is it okay to seek political power in a way that might legitimize it as somebody that, as a libertarian voluntarist, is directly opposed to political power?
Well, and I've already explained. I explained that in my very first opening.
I missed it.
Say it again. Why we're at an impasse, and this is why I think we're at an impasse. Is I believe that our candidates, I fully believe in my heart, the majority of our candidates are trying to get into positions to relinquish that power through the political process. Now, I guess you could argue with me, like Larkin has, that that's not congruent with philosophically, or consistent philosophically with voluntarism because you're justifying the system. But I don't believe that. I think in that specific counterpoint, you are assigning the motives to my candidates, to my own thinking, to anybody who works with the Libertarian Party. You're assigning those motives. That is 100% not the truth for all of our candidates, all of our party activists, all of our campaign helpers, our managers. I mean, it's not. That is not the truth. And you're assigning those motives to make your point, and I get that, but that's just not.
I don't care what their motives are. I care what their message is, and if their message starts with if elected, they are absolutely reinforcing the notion that the thing we should be doing is focusing on having the masters giving us more permission to be free. Whatever good intentions they may or may not have, their message is anti-freedom.
No, I disagree. I mean,
say why you disagree for the audience.
I have repeatedly over and over and over and over again. I disagree. I think that chipping at the wall is better than not chipping at the wall at all. And I think if we have candidates who can chip at the wall, then it's a good idea. I mean, that's just plain and plain. That is as plainly as I can possibly put it.
How is it chipping at the wall?
I mean, this legislation fucking exists. I mean, we're having this conversation like this stuff doesn't exist. I understand that we can say all day that it doesn't have the right to rule over us, but unfortunately it fucking does. I mean, I'm not saying it has the right to. I'm saying that it does rule over us. I mean, every single day I wake up and I have to follow these stupid, arbitrary, fucking dumb rules, financially, criminally. I mean, I have to follow these things because I have a family to raise. I have 6 children. I can't. Hey, I appreciate what you've done, Larkin. I do. I applaud it. You literally walked your talk, man. You went and spent a year in federal prison. I don't have that fucking luxury, dude. You know what I mean? My kids need me. My girlfourking needs me. I have to pay these stupid fucking taxes. I know what you know what I'm saying though. But you have the opportunity to say, look what I fucking did, right? Look what I did. Look what I pulled off. I actually did these things. I appreciate that. I don't have that luxury, man. Like I love Samuel Conkin, right? Like I would love to be an agorist and be like, I'm planting all my own shit. We're homesteading. I'm opting the complete fucking out of this tax system. We're only gonna deal in crypto from now on. I'm gonna barter with chickens with my neighbor. Like I would love to do that shit, but I can't. I live in a system that exists right now, no matter how legitimate it is or not. And so I'm going to take every avenue I can to make a better life for those children, for my family, for my neighbors, for my mother, my grandmother, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my friends. And if I just sit here and go, well, yeah, if I take part in that, then it's legitimizing it. Nothing changes for me. Nothing changes for me. Nothing changes for my family. Nothing changes. All those people that I just listed, nothing changes. You know what I mean?
Well, you're talking as if
telling
that's
me
the
that
only thing. Yeah.
It's not. And I've told you that several times throughout this debate. I believe that it's in tandem with things like crypto, the crypto community. I think the crypto community is extremely important. I think the more we opt out of their monetary system, the better. You know what I mean? I think that telling the government you're not going to follow their rules on a massive scale is a good idea. I think jury nullification is a great idea. I look at all of these things as different tools in my toolbox, including the political process. And I think that just acting like it doesn't exist, or acting like they don't have the moral authority to do these things to me, isn't going to change the fact that they still are going to do these things to you, no matter how much you don't want them to.
The only thing that will change that is for enough people to understand that they don't have the right to rule. And you don't get people to understand that by starting a campaign that starts with the premise that we accept the concept of the right to rule and legislation. We just want to go in there and tinker with the legislation ourselves.
But we don't. We don't accept that they have the right to rule. That's the problem. This is the breakdown. We don't accept that they have the right to rule, Larkin. We accept that a large portion of this country accepts that they have the right to rule. And we have to chip away at these bad...
In almost every campaign I've ever seen by a libertarian, they absolutely talk in terms of, we need to change the laws so that we need to elect representatives who blah, 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 reinforcing
it's a political party.
All the political mythology that can give them the right to rule.
It's a political party. It's not about pretending. I love you, Larkin. You are assigning motives to people that you don't personally know.
No, their motives don't matter. I'm talking about their message.
Okay.
They are spreading the message that this game is legitimate.
We need a concrete example. So let's use this one.
Oh, Jesus. Oof. Do we have to?
Quote from Jo Jorgensen's campaign. She was the candidate for president of the United States of America in the Libertarian Party. Quote, taxes are never voluntary. They are always paid under threat of punishment. Good so far? If you fail to pay what government says you owe, you can be fined, have your wages garnished, assets seized, even go to prison. Voting for more government spending, and we have someone here that has experienced this. Voting for more government spending inevitably leads to higher taxes to pay for it now or in the future. As president, I will work tirelessly to slash federal spending, make government much, much smaller, and let you keep what you earn. Larkin, what's wrong with that?
The let part. I'll agree right there. I mean, that's wrong. That's what's wrong. The let you part. I mean, that is wrong.
I asked Larkin. You get your turn.
Oh, okay.
Well, he got the right answer anyway.
Yeah,
it isn't just a little bit wrong. It is massively, fundamentally evil to say that if you put me on the throne, I will let you keep what you earned. That is screwed the fuck up. To have anything like that in a message pretending to be pro-freedom, puts me on the throne and I shall bestow upon you my mercy and allow you. Ew. That is a disgusting message. Halfway through the message, I was like, yeah. I'd seen that before. And it's a shining example of how the message that the party spread with that candidate is 100% anti-freedom and pro-authoritarianism, even if she's pretending she's going to let us keep what we earn. That's just disgusting and revolting and has nothing to do with freedom.
Okay, Joshua, your turn.
And I'm gonna preface this with that candidate got 1.5% of the vote in 2020, right? Now, a candidate that was not as radical as that in 2016 got almost 5 million votes for the Libertarian Party, and that's the state
Mr.
of our yes, Mr. Bake the Cake, Gary Johnson, right? That's the unfortunate state of our country right now. That's literally, that's the saddening part, is Jo Jorgensen was much, much more radical than Gary Johnson ever could have imagined to be. And she got 3 million less votes than Gary Johnson and fucking CFR board member, Raytheon lobbyist Bill Weld. Okay? That's the unfortunate... I mean, that really is bolstering my point of where we are as a society in this country, right? These people are fucking blind, and we have an opportunity. Fuck the legislation. Completely forget about what we can do winning elections, and just take campaigns for what they can do to actually message our principles and our ideals to their constituency at different levels of government. I mean, at different levels of...
Look at the example you just used.
elections.
Your own party.
Sure.
The candidate for
that was
president.
Yeah.
The highest
In one of the
office
most-
there is. The
in one of the
that
most
you just described
tribalistic-
is way more radical than Gary Johnson.
Right.
And the message was, I will let you keep your money. That's a shit message. The best
I agree.
candidate...
I don't think it was a great idea.
Okay, so we have 30 minutes left of our debate time today. We have some questions from the audience. Also, reminder to the audience, if you're watching, get your questions in now. We have 30 minutes remaining. But I think this is a perfect pivot point because we're talking about Jo Jorgensen. Let's switch from the first premise to the second premise. Is it practical? Is it a practical solution? We're done with the is it moral? Is it consistent morally and philosophically? Now let's talk about practical. Is it practical to do this kind of work to achieve a libertarian or voluntary society? I think Josh went first last time, right? So let's do Larkin first this time. Well, given that the Libertarian Party's been around for half a century, I've only been a voluntarist for a quarter century, or maybe not, it was somewhere in the 70s where they came into being. And all those nasty fascist laws happened since then. I think that the track record is, no, it doesn't stinking work. But there's also the fact that, and in some cases, I think it's just ignorance, and in other cases, I think it's intentional dishonesty. I won't name names, you can probably guess a few. But when, like Jorgensen says, if elected, I will let you keep more of your money, on top of the nausea-inducing assumption in that, it's also a bald-faced lie. President can't do a damn thing about that. President can't reduce taxes. Congress writes the budget bills, and a president that doesn't have a bunch of Congress on her side can't do shit. But she's pretending, I mean, the likelihood of her getting elected was zero. In fact, let me focus on that, because that's way more important than just the fact that so many candidates pretend, if I get to be president, I'll do all these things, and then they list a bunch of things the president has no power to do. But if you accept the premise that somebody has the right to rule, there is a very obvious reason why libertarians are never going to win. Because you'll have one candidate going to the voter and saying, hey,
I have the right to rule. I have the legislative power to control other people and tax them to give them what you want. And I'm going to give you libraries and roads and this thing and that thing and all these great things. I'm going to tax the rich because there aren't very many of them. I'll pretend to tax the rich, and really I'm in their back pocket, but whatever. I'll pretend to tax the rich, and I'll give you all this great stuff. And if you accept that I have the right to use violence by way of my enforcers, why the hell wouldn't you want that? You believe it's legitimate for me to rob your neighbors and give you free stuff. Why wouldn't you vote for that? And then along comes the libertarian and says, if elected, I'm not really going to give you anything. I'm going to accept the premise that I have the right to rob everybody to give you money, and that government can do such things and have programs and benefits, but I'm not really going to give you anything. Gee, why don't libertarians win more often? Because they're trying to bribe people with nothing versus somebody trying to bribe them with bread and circuses. The only rational moral counter to, I'm going to rob your neighbors and give you bread and circuses, is not, I'm going to rob your neighbors a little bit and give you one stale loaf of bread. The only moral opposition that has any chance of actually defeating it is that's not okay for anybody to rob your neighbors to give you bread and circuses, and it's not okay for them to rob you. It's a distinct philosophical step away from the game. You can't win the game designed of, by, and for the tyrants and use it to achieve freedom, which is why that's never happened anywhere in the history of the entire world, where a government has legislated itself out of existence and decided, with this final act, we're going to give up all our power. Doesn't stinking happen that way, because the entire game is built to create power. It's why the tiny little Constitution grew into this giant authoritarian monstrosity. And if you play the game, you're playing a game that is absolutely destined to go in that direction, which is why literally since the revolution, there have been people trying to be politically active and keep our government small and limited, and it grew into the biggest authoritarian empire the world has ever known. That's, to me, that is the most useful thing the Constitution did, is it proved that limited government is an impossibility. And trying to go back and make it little now, when it's already this monstrously evil beast that is going to defend its own power, it's zero chance of success, in addition to the fact that the message is completely contradictory.
Okay, Joshua, same basic question to you. Let's address why is it a practical solution?
Right. Well, I think it's practical, even if we throw out all the campaigning and all the argument that we just had over the last hour and a half about, whether it's philosophically consistent. I think it's useful because we get people in the public eye that can talk about libertarian ideals. I think that education, if you read the party's bylaws, the party stands for two things. I mean, it literally is written into our bylaws that, one, we're here to win elections, to get people into these positions, right? And two, to educate the population on libertarian ideals. So I think the fact that it has ballot access around the country, most states, the fact that they do get into some debates, at least at the state level and county level, because of their political party affiliation, their political party status, I do think that it's a useful tool to, at least, if nothing else, if you agree with nothing else about the political party, it can be a useful tool to educate constituencies and normies around the country at different levels about how libertarian ideals can enrich their lives, not just through the political process, but also, with actually getting rid of some of these government agencies and stuff like that. I mean, you can say what you want about Jo. She did come out from the very get-go saying, I would abolish the CIA and the ATF. I mean, that was kind of cool. I would like to abolish the ATF. I think that, they're pretty much pointless at this point, at all points in history of the ATF. And I'm sure there's some people in Texas that would agree with me. Yeah, I think that that's useful. And
I just caught that. Sorry.
You caught that one, huh? Yeah, that's okay. I think that it can be used as an educational, if nothing else, there's a possibility to use the Libertarian Party as a think tank. And I believe, I don't want to assign anything to anybody, but Patrick, you somewhat can agree with me, being as you have used that platform to try and educate people in your not governor campaigns on the ideals of liberty. So I think that it can be a useful tool, even if you don't agree with at all with the whatever you want to call it. Your viewers are probably calling it statist apologism. Is that what they're saying in there? Yeah. Even if you don't agree with that stuff, it can still be used as a platform to get yourself into some positions to educate, a town hall or a state legislator debate or a gubernatorial debate. I mean, you still have the opportunity to use that. So I don't know if you disagree there.
I want to not give too many of my personal opinions because I'm the middleman moderator in this. If you want to come back on another time, another show, I'm totally happy to do this with you.
We've had this same debate sitting in your living room, Patrick.
I know. I'm aware. I'm aware. I'm just. This is not the place for it. You're taking on Larkin today. Okay. So
no, I'm just saying. I'm saying. But that's whatever. And Murray Rothbard was one of the founders of the Libertarian Party, and he understood it to be an educational outlet to educate people through the political process on libertarian ideals. So, like I said, even if you don't agree whatsoever with the political process part, I would hope that you could see that there's some usefulness in educating people through the platforms, at least, the million followers almost on the Twitter and the debates, the town halls, these kind of things. Gives us an opportunity to get our ideals into a more mainstream position, which is important if you want to educate people to opt out, I would think. So.
Okay, so I guess if we want to do that sounded like a closing sort of statement from you, Josh. If you wanted to do an actual closing, you're welcome to. Larkin, you are welcome to as well. We have about 20 minutes left. I have a list of questions that the audience has challenging both of you. So if you guys want to have a closing word, now would be a good time, and then we can hit some questions.
Sure.
Joshua, was that your closing, or would you like to do something else? Is there something else you want to add?
Yeah, that was pretty much a closing. I mean, I just want to make it clear before it's over. Like I said in the very beginning of this, if I had the Murray Rothbard button, I would push the Murray Rothbard button tomorrow. I would get rid of the government. I would abolish it. I think it's violence. I think it's terrible. But I also will chip away at any little tiny piece of tyranny that I can on it that's within my power to do so, and I'll use any tool to do it. So I don't disagree with Larkin. I think Larkin is right on most things. I just think that we have these little opportunities, and we should take them anywhere we get them. It's asymmetrical warfare in any chance we get. So,
okay, I think that was a good closing. Larkin?
I want to quick summarize why I'm so zealously vocal about this. Because if there was a group that said, in an effort to reduce government power, every Tuesday we're going to put on big purple top hats and dancing around a circle around an albino hedgehog, I wouldn't complain about it. I would tell them, it's not really going to do any good. I don't know why you're doing that, but I mean, it's your time to waste. Have fun. I want to tell you why I'm so zealously vocal against political action. And it goes back to 94, when I was still a statist, and the Republican Revolution happened. Back in my day, I had some hope in what a bunch of Republicans were saying. There were a bunch of Republicans who got voted into office who had never been politicians before. They were like businessmen, all sorts of stuff. They were saying the greatest stuff, we're going to slash taxes, government's the problem, all this stuff, we're going to hack it down. They went in. Newt Gingrich was doing a great job of spreading the message. Didn't believe a word of it, but did a great job of spreading the message. Most of you won't even remember back that far, but the messages were so great. They were literally more consistent and coherent than what I've seen the Libertarian Party push forward. I was all excited. The Republicans took the House in 94. They controlled it. Now they're going to do everything. They didn't. They didn't undo anything of any significance. And a bunch of the freshman congressmen came out and said, we can't do anything. Like, some of us actually really meant it. We really believed that. And we went into the system. And on day one, they sat us down and said, yeah, turn off CNN. Here's how it actually works. You can't do shit unless you play the game the way we tell you to play the game. And golly gee, nothing got done. The reason I rail against this is not just because it's useless. It's way worse than useless. The amount of time and energy and money and excitement and hope that pro-freedom people throw into these campaigns when they are designed to waste those people's time and accomplish nothing is just infuriating. The amount of money donated to the party, the amount of time and effort people going around and telling people about the Libertarian Party, losing 80 bazillion times in a row for the last 50 stinking years, spreading a message that's completely incoherent and self-contradictory and accomplishing nothing. If I were a tyrant, I would have made that party on purpose to take the people who kind of believe in freedom and give them something utterly pointless to do, to waste their time and effort, to get their hopes up, to dash their hopes, to smash them into the ground and have them slink back into compliance where they belong. I would make the Libertarian Party as it is now, because it isn't just useless. It's way, way worse than useless. It is absolutely counterproductive because it reinforces the insane and evil notion that if you want freedom, the way to get it is to play the game and either try to add your own clown to the circus or become the new king on the throne. And when it doesn't work over and over and over and over again, the tyrants are up there laughing their asses off and thinking all those dumbasses had to do was to get together and disobey us. And instead, we have them playing this ridiculous game that not only has no chance of achieving freedom, but it actually reinforces the idea that these bizarre religious rituals are legitimate and that the legislative outcomes and the people who get elected, that that's real, that that's valid, that people have an obligation to give a crap about any of that. It takes the focus of pro-freedom people and turns it into pro-authoritarian delusions. And having been the victim of that back when I thought I believed in freedom as a Republican statist, very limited statist, and seeing how much of my excitement and energy I wasted on that crap, playing their inherently bullshit game, until I finally wised up to realize the whole game is evil. It's all immoral. And then, went about trying to spread that message. That's why I say the Libertarian Party is worse than nothing. It isn't just a waste of time. It takes pro-freedom people and it pushes them in the direction of believing the political mythology that is the entire problem.
All right, thank you for that, Larkin. We have 15 minutes remaining. We have about 7 questions, which gives us about 2 minutes per question, so we got to go kind of quick here. I want to start by reading a funny one. Buck50 says, so does he not believe in having a government? No, Buck50. No one on the screen right now believes
not a single
in
one of us.
a government. Welcome to the channel. Good to have you. Stick around. You'll probably have a fun time. Okay, so another funny comment, Daniel Earl. This one I'm happy to have Joshua respond to. Daniel Earl says, so what I'm hearing, basically, so what needs to be done is fix the Mises Caucus so that we can fix the Libertarian Party, so that we can fix the township government, to fix the county government, to fix the state government, so that we can fix the federal government.
Jiminy Christmas, dude. Well, when you put it like that, what an asshole. No, Jesus.
I'm sorry. Did Daniel Earl just win the debate?
I think so. No, I think that the Mises Caucus is doing really good things. They've already got local candidates. They've funded and helped local candidates win already. Libertarian candidates that were running as libertarians. So, I mean, they're doing the best work in the Libertarian Party as far as what I can see personally. So that's why I like the Mises Caucus, because they are unapologetic. The vast majority of the Libertarian or the Mises Caucus are unapologetic libertarians that, if they had the opportunity, would also push the Rothbard button. So. I think that's just a good place if you're going to work politically with the Libertarian Party. I believe that's the best place to focus your energy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tried that. All right, so, sorry. I'm sorry.
Jesus,
sorry.
Patrick.
I tried. Okay, sorry.
I'm just gonna be this neutral moderator.
Oh, come on. I've been doing good. Okay. Moving on. Here's a question to Larkin. Gerard Perry. How does not voting end the system, Larkin?
It doesn't. Never did I say or imply that the act of not voting is the way to fix stuff. The analogy I use is, you come upon somebody and they're smashing their toe with a hammer. Cut it out. What are you doing? Just my head hurts. Why are you hitting your toe with a hammer? It's to fix my head. It's not. Stop hitting your toe with a hammer. Oh, you just want me to do nothing about my head? No, I want you to stop making it worse by doing something else even dumber. The solution isn't just to not vote. It's to not vote and then spread the idea of self-ownership and non-aggression. So yeah, not doing something doesn't fix it, but doing that thing makes it worse. So I'm A, in favor of not doing the thing that makes it worse, and then B, do things that make it better, namely spreading the ideas of voluntarism and non-aggression.
Do you have any quick comments on that, Josh?
I disagree. I think that
Thanks for keeping it quick.
I think that using everything, like I said 100 times over this debate, I think using every tool at your disposal is a good idea. Period.
Okay. Daniel Earl, second question. What happens when your guy's term ends and the government just reverts to what it was doing before, e.g. executive orders? I guess that's to Joshua.
Wait, one more time? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
What happens when your guy's term ends? I'm assuming, let's assume a Libertarian Party candidate wins, and the government just reverts to what it was before, e.g. through executive orders.
Sucks, man. Then we didn't do our job as libertarians. Clearly, you know what I mean? If we get somebody, look, let's say tomorrow that a Libertarian Party presidential candidate won the election. It's probably not going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen in my lifetime. I'm sure of it. We are under no illusion that we're going to win a presidential election anytime soon. But let's say that happens in this hypothetical scenario, right? Which is most of what we're debating at this point is hypothetical, anyways, or just not reality. Let's say that that happens and a libertarian president is able to abolish the CIA, the ATF, the federal income tax, military interventionism, or foreign interventionism, all this stuff. Are you telling me that the 300 million people here that live in this country aren't going to look at all that stuff over 4 years and go, my life is way better than it was 4 years ago. Like, everything is better. We're not at war all the time. I have so much more money to take care of my family. I don't have to worry about committing 7 felonies a day or whatever the fuck it is. Like, if we weren't able to exude that from those positions, then we haven't done our job as political libertarians, right? That's what I'm going to call them now, political libertarians. So, it would really be our fault, to be honest with you. But I believe that, every time I've seen a libertarian get elected to an office, like Jeff Hewitt, who's a county supervisor in Riverside County, he was able to, keep the city basically from going bankrupt. He got all the police and this is little shit, but he got the police and the fire department off of the CalPERS retirements that were kind of taking a bunch of money from his constituency. They got to reduce some local taxes. I mean, he did some stuff that was good. And that was as mayor of Calamasa. And then they elected him to be a county supervisor of Riverside County, which has a constituency that's bigger than like 6 other states. It's got a $2 billion a year budget. And now he's doing those same things at the county level. So he did his job. He showed his constituency what libertarians in office can do. And he actually got elected to an even higher office. So if that was to happen, if all those things were to go back into place, it would be a failure on the candidate, in my opinion.
Okay, so we have 8 minutes, and this next one I want to give each of you 45 seconds to just quickly answer. Let's see here. Jason Supino, I want to hear more about what we can do. Hearing the fact that they both agree on the outcome, how we get rid of the government is the ultimate goal, but what is the best way to get there? Larkin, what's the best way to get there?
Again, it's all about how many people understand self-ownership. And although this will be slightly self-serving, I'll mention Candles in the Dark, which is the program that Amanda and I have that teaches people the most effective way I've ever seen to talk to normal people, like statists, to get them to actually question their underlying beliefs. But however you do it, videos, books, one-on-one discussions, you have to understand that the problem is not in government. It's between the ears of billions and billions of people who believe they have an obligation to obey. That is what has to change. That is where the focus has to be.
Josh?
I think it's all of it. I think it's it's what I'm talking about. It's what Larkin's talking about. It's crypto. It's nullification. It's people like Michael Bolden talking about nullification at the state and local level, and also the jury nullification. I think it's a package deal, man. I think we can use all of these things at our disposal to roll back a state. But if we're fighting about which one of the tools in the toolbox is the best at achieving that, then we're focusing too much of our time fighting inside as opposed to the state. And that's, I think, as libertarians, we're kind of predisposed to doing that anyways. We're always fighting amongst ourselves, and I think it's a dumb debate, honestly. At the end of the day, I think anybody who's working to roll back the size and scope of intrusive government at any level with any tool they have, do it. That's how we're going to win.
So this next one is a amalgamated question from 3 different people, including Jeff Berwick. I'm gonna read all 3, and then it's definitely a challenge to Larkin. So, number 1, Jeff Berwick. I think the fact that Ron Paul used the system to create millions of anarchists shows it has value. Also from Jeff Berwick. Imagine there are hundreds of Ron Pauls. How many more anarchists does that create? And then from Dave Sims. Larkin Rose, why not use the system itself to exploit the system like Ron Paul did? It's the biggest platform possible to show all of its faults. So this is basically the Ron Paul challenge, Larkin. Sounds pretty solid. What do you say?
Yeah, and if the message is actually that, I don't care what podium somebody does that from. If they run for an office and do it from that podium, or if they're a dishwasher or a car mechanic, I'm all in favor of spreading the actual consistent message. The thing is, almost nobody does that. The reason everybody mentions Ron Paul is because there's Ron Paul and then there's nobody. And Ron Paul didn't finish the journey. He started a lot of people in that direction, although he does sound anarchist pretty often, but he also talks about the Constitution. But he started a bunch of people in the journey, and that's great. The thing that made him so different is he didn't give a crap about the politics and the legislative stuff. He was Dr. No, he just voted against everything. He was actually about the message. And even though it wasn't entirely consistent, there was enough actual substance there that it was worthwhile when he talked, because he was spreading that. But there were still contradictions even in that. And if we're going to spread a message by, we're going to use this platform for it, don't spread a contradictory a convoluted mess of a message. Spread something that's actually coherent. And the thing is, it's not another tool in the box. If your message includes, I will let you keep your money, that's not a tool in the box of being pro-freedom. That's pro-authoritarian 100%. It's just begging for a nicer master. By all means, from any platform, if you actually spread a coherent message of self-ownership and voluntarism, excellent, outstanding. And by the way, Ron Paul didn't all the way do that, but a lot of people could see the truth in what he said and eventually let go of the statist debris of what he said and became anarchists instead. So I'm never against the spreading of the message. My criticism is that most of the time the message is not pro-freedom from the Libertarian Party. It's this convoluted, self-contradictory mess.
I think Joshua has gotten a nickname in chat, and it seems to be an endearing one. It is Joshua Toolbox Smith, because he wants to use all them tools.
Jesus.
Joshua Toolbox Smith.
I am not the politician that you think I am. I am a blue-collar, working-class, red-blooded American, okay? And so when I make my analogies, when I've made my analogies and why I've been able to resonate with people so much around the country, it's because I'm just a normal fucking person. I'm not nearly as smart as Larkin, in case anybody's wondering. Furthermore, I've been able to do well because the majority of people in this country are just blue collar working class people that want to be left the fuck alone. And so that's how I explain things in those kind of analogies to make it easier for people.
All right, we have 2 minutes. Last question, and I think this sounds like a challenge for Larkin again, but Josh can comment if we have time. Richard Cranium question for Larkin: Libertarianism is a stepping stone to voluntarism. Is that a bad thing in that aspect?
Figuring out that your slave master shouldn't whip you so hard can be the first step in figuring out he doesn't have the right to own you at all. I'm not going to advocate slavery, a nicer form of slavery, because eventually someone might get there and someone might get to the logical conclusion. But it's funny. I'm glad people start people on the journey towards, voluntarism.
You're
But
welcome.
don't freaking stop. Go all the way there. The end.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Larkin. I will send them on over, buddy. I promise.
Okay, let's start with Joshua. Tell people where they can find your work if they want to follow you. I know you have a brand new podcast called Break the Cycle. Where can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find the YouTube channel at youtube.com/fightthedespots. Actually, that's the current channel. The channel name is Break the Cycle with Joshua Smith. Follow me at Twitter, at Joshua at large. That's where I'm at war with the blue checks, in case you're wondering. It's a lot of fun. Twitter's a fun place till they kick you off. And that's pretty much it. I do have an Odyssey because I auto sync my YouTube stream to Odyssey for the inevitable time that they throw me off of YouTube. And also I have a BitChute, Break the Cycle with Joshua Smith, Facebook, Break the Cycle with Joshua Smith, Instagram up soon. But definitely the Odyssey channel and the YouTube channel, because I'm trying to grift that ad revenue into being a stay-at-home dad someday. So,
All right, Larkin, I know that you have a 10candles.com and the Rose channel. Where can people find you?
We have lots of stuff on YouTube. Oddly, I haven't been kinged off that yet. I'm sure I will be soon enough. So just youtube.com/Larkin Rose. And then, therosechannel.com. And I think on the Rose channel, I better check, is the thing for the Jones Plantation, the full-length, like, honest-to-goodness movie we're making out of that little animated thing that I'm really excited about. And I think that's going to be traumatic for a bunch of people. People can still donate to that. And we're even accepting, like, actor tryouts for different parts of it still.
Awesome.
So that's the main things.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has concluded our debate. I really hope you enjoy it. I thank you for watching it. Thanks to the Anarchapulco people for letting us join them for this awesomeness. This is my favorite thing to do in the world, is debate philosophy with people and to fight over ideas like this. Thank you, both of you, for participating. Josh, Toolbox, Smith, and Larkin Rose, I appreciate you. It's been great. I've enjoyed this. I'm happy to do it again or to continue these conversations anytime you would like to. And I think with that said, we have to end the show and kick it back to the Anarchapulco stream. We are back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. So thanks, guys. I'll see you later. All right. Peace. Love. Anarchy.
Good times, buddy. Good times. That was fun.
Dot.
I got